Who are we waiting for? You waiting for him?
You were live.
Okay, call the meeting at 7 o'clock. So, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
None for me.
None here.
None for Eric.
None for Jeff.
Okay, Deputy Chief, Lieutenant Ellen, Sergeant Carmack, you got anything you want, or is we okay to go?
I'll set on this end.
I'm all set, Paul.
Oh, look, Doug's in full view. Oh, he's losing hair. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 17th Police Commission meeting?
You have a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Hey, just one comment on the minutes, Paul.
Sure.
I think real nice job, Ruth.
Oh, don't-
Right level of detail. You can pick these things up and understand what took place in the meeting, and I think they're really good. It'd make it in the corporate world.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Very good. So we have an action item based on our recent meetings with Brian Frio, Thomas Orty, and the assorted cast of dozens. That once a year at the April meeting, we have to post a schedule for our meetings. So at this point, has everyone read it over? It doesn't mean that it can't be changed, but this, this is our planned schedule at this point. If there aren't any questions, can I have a motion?
It's the third Tuesday,
That's
every
good.
third Tuesday.
Did I get a second on that?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, Deputy Chief, we've got monthly report.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I'm going to start with a screen share just briefly. So once again, this is our Lucas device. It's called the Lucas Tool Chest Compression Device. We're in the final stages of training. We have one last group, which will be finishing up at the end of the month, and then we'll be placing this in service. It'll be within the patrol vehicles, so it'll respond to any, cardiac arrest victim. And the feedback was pretty positive on this. It's essentially just a backpack device. It'll be transferred from vehicle to vehicle, from shift to shift. So a tremendous asset that was donated by Beaumont Hospital and the doctors there. So I just wanted to reiterate, we're very grateful for the device, and we're looking forward to saving lives. We do, because of the lack of in-person commission meetings, but we did have a a moment with her, presented her with her documentation and her PIN. And it wasn't related to a life-saving with chest compressions, but it was a diabetic emergency. So I just wanted the commission to be aware that myself and Lieutenant Pellin are very proud of our staff. They do an excellent job in saving lives and being out there, and they'll continue to do so.
Now I can't remember. Just call me Joe Biden.
Okay.
So if I have a quick question that I remember, I will bring it up.
You can jump in anytime. What I wanted to bring to the commission's attention, our interdiction unit. This is one of our task force
If
officers.
I can break back in.
Okay.
I don't know if Brian's still with us.
Yeah, what do you need, Paul?
Just, are we anticipating going back to live meetings in April?
That's the hope. Trust me, if there's probably nobody who wants it more than me. But as of right now, we're on Zoom by governors allowing it through March 31st. So at that point, she's going to have to make a decision what's moving forward. So at this point, yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, Chief.
You're fine, sir. I appreciate that. So I just wanted to give an overview. This is a recent contact that our interdiction officer had at Detroit Metro Airport. As you can see, the copious amounts of money. One of his taglines during this interaction was, Bill Gates doesn't even carry this amount of cash on him whenever he goes through a concourse. So for the month of February, we did receive over $240,000 in forfeiture funding that was dispensed through federal and state forfeiture. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. This was brought up during the township board meeting. We also have the anticipated amount of about $750,000 to $1 million still that are in line to be dispensed to the Grosse Police Department. So our task force officer is doing an excellent job. Just over the course of the last few weeks, he's brought in over hundreds of thousands of dollars in just actual cash, people transporting cash with no fundamental reason to be carried. The next thing is Lieutenant and myself, just over the last couple of days, we were approached by Wayne County, and the Wayne County dispenses certain grants. One specific grant is the State Homeland Security Grant Program, and then the other one is called the Urban Area Security Initiative. Wayne County reached out to us and gave us like a 24-hour notice to come up with some concepts, but the lieutenant already had some ideas in mind, and then I complemented with some of his ideas of what we could use training funds, grants, to be able to fundamentally support some projects that we would need to have for Grosse. The first one was that we came up with an idea of funding a grant proposal for planning, training, and a response to the loss of both of our bridges. So if we were to have a situation where there was a mechanical failure or some type of intervention that we were not able to, have traverse through our two bridges, we would have our emergency action plan simulated, and then we would put it to use. So back whenever Adolfina was here, we used to do in another jurisdiction exercises with Adolfina with the potential of gas releases that they would have. It was an exercise that was with roundtable discussions, tabletop planning, and then doing an actual exercise. Our objective would be to do the same thing, implement our emergency operations system, and then, just go through all the nomenclature of how we would go about responding to an emergency and test our response plan to see if it has any deficiencies. The other one is what we call soft target and crowded places. This is active shooter training that we've been wanting to do with the schools. Anniston, Alabama does a instructor course for active shooter. We can send some students down there. They can train our officers, and then they can come back as instructors. This would be for a response to any school shootings, any of our sporting events that we have for our community schools, and then our annual festival. And so we would want to do a live training, planning, and exercise to support those. And then the last one is Alice training. I'm going to let the lieutenant jump in on. He's very well versed with school activities. So Lieutenant, if you could comment on that.
So ALICE training is a multi-option program that allows people in a critical incident to decide what is safest for them and how they react. The first thing that you could try to do, we would encourage, is to evacuate if possible. And if not, there's a lockdown procedure. And then ultimately, it teaches people to counter or swarm the offender. That has been taught to all of the staff at the schools. We're trying to incorporate staff members at our local churches with that particular program. Grosse is going to host a training class in June to bring on more instructors, because unfortunately 3 of the instructors that were within the schools have left for different districts. So there's myself and 2 other teachers that can train individuals. So we're going to bring more instructors on board. And then, like the deputy chief was explaining, it would be great to do a critical incident exercise with the schools, developing our evacuation plans where the kids are going to go to a church or another staging area and handle that procedure. Well, ALICE is basically teaching our residents how to respond in a critical incident, but we're going to host a training for instructors so we can deliver that program to them.
Thank you, Lieutenant. The next thing I'm going to draw your attention to is our self-initiated activity for the month of February. As you can see, a lot of verbal warnings, so our officers do make a lot of contact, but they're not writing a copious amount of citations. There's trying to be a work-life balance that we try and create. So education we fall upon as much as we can without doing enforcement action. But as you can see, there were citations written for that month at 30 total. Our security notices, those are where officers, again, check for unlocked doors on vehicles. They look for homes that look unoccupied, may have amount of newspapers and such, open garage doors, anything that would draw attention to a criminal for easy access to making you a victim of crime. Our incident reports are at 34 for the month. We had a felony arrest and 9 misdemeanor arrests. So our officers were pretty active for the month of February. This is a traffic summary report from Officer Psychoteris. This is showing our traffic crashes, more specifically out of the 10 crashes for the month. Compared to last month on the deer car crashes, we went from 7 down to 1 deer crash for the month of February. So we're happy about that. If we compare that to the previous year of 2020, we're in line with the same amount of deer vehicle crashes that took place. And in 2019, we had 3, so decreased in the amount of car vehicle crashes for the month of February. Going over the budget just briefly, or is that another? I think that's another. We'll skip that. I'll come back to that.
You can do it now if you want.
Are you good? Okay. So our budget is in line. We're on target to be under budget for the fiscal year. Our fiscal year, for those that don't know, ends March 31st, and our new budget year will begin April 1st. So we're under budget. This is our current year-to-date balance, as you can see, 3.4 million, and we have a budgeted allowance of 3.6. No significant increases. Overtime has been under control. We did have, for the month of February, there was an increase in overtime due to what we call personal days. Their personal days for the staff expire, or it's kind of a use them or lose them for the month of February going from March going into April. They have to use those personal days by the end of March, or else they lose them April 1st. They do have the ability to bank 5 personal days, but if they exceed that amount and don't use them, then they'll lose them. So we have an increased amount of overtime usually in the month of February and March that the officers choose to use their personal time instead of losing it.
Have we ever gotten ourselves into the position where more guys who wanted to be off or had to have off to be able to catch their time than we could afford to let off?
Could you rephrase it again for me, Paul?
Yeah, I suppose so. I sound like a lawyer. have we ever got into the mathematical situation where people had not used their time and let it all come down to the end, and there were, you know, to let everybody use the time that they had coming, it would have impacted our ability to
Right.
cover the road.
Yes, sir. The contract stipulates that only a certain amount of people can use PL days in a given day. So
Okay.
they're pretty conscious by looking at our schedule what the outlook would be on trying to get their time complete.
Okay.
So yes.
Hey, Brent, it's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Is there any qualifications for taking time off, personal time, that make them eligible? Does it have to be like going to a doctor, or, I mean?
No, it's different than the in the corporate world. They have to provide a 48 hours notice, and then the personal leave is granted. We frown upon, you know, we do have some emergencies where individuals will, you know, have a busted water heater or some type of emergency, and then it's at the chief's discretion whether or not they can forego that 48-hour notice. But as for the application, it's just a personal day and they can use it at their will.
Okay.
Just here's our vehicle mileage compared to last month. I was looking at the difference from 17,000 miles driven the previous month to February, which would have been January. Mileage was down. There was a 28-day period, and then I did look at our schedule. We had increase in personal day use, vacation time, and sick time. So those were attributing factors that diminished the miles driven for the month of February. I'm going to reflect this over to Lieutenant Pellin, if you would, and go over the detective report, if you would, sir.
So you'll see highlighted there 6 of the complaints that we took in the month of February, on pretty big variety of types of cases. I would note that in addition to the ones that are listed, our officers did respond to an additional 5 natural death investigations. So for the month of February, it looks like we had 6, which seems to be quite a lot. Out of those 6, 1 of them is suspected of being COVID. However, the person was not diagnosed, but immediate family member was. They took in a total of 40 complaints. The majority were handled by the road, but the Detective Bureau did submit some warrant recommendations, and they did obtain some felony charges on one of the suspects in the case 210727, where a gentleman ran over 16 properties with his pickup truck, fled from the officer when he attempted to pull him over. There was some resisting going on after the arrest was tried. The officer was trying to make the arrest. Then it resulted in 5 total charges for that guy. He was a 25-year-old resident of Grosse. So pretty decent month, but you'll notice that the variety. Took 2 firearms off people. 1 allegation of criminal sexual conduct was a boyfriend-girlfriend situation, and a couple traffic situations.
Lieutenant,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
On the death investigation, it said case open pending autopsy. Is there any update?
No, it will take a long time for that to come back, but it's believed that it was natural causes. But we did request assistance from the medical examiner because of the age of the individual. And at the time that the officers responded, they were unable to get a hold of a family member immediately to determine the past history, medical history. But there's no reasons to suspect any type of foul play in that particular case.
Can I ask one more?
Sure.
The last one on the OWI and possession of the firearm while intoxicated.
Yes.
The guy had a carry permit.
He did.
Does he lose that with an OWI?
The CCW board was notified of the violation, and that's going to be up to them to either suspend or revoke his permit. That would be secondary to the criminal charges that he was
Right.
that were levied against him.
All right. I'm sorry. Thanks.
Oh, good.
Lieutenant, I'll let you segue into the training report since you're right on that.
Okay. So you'll note there was quite a variety of training that took place. The deputy chief already mentioned that several members of the department trained on the Lucas device. Our mutual aid task force officers attended their monthly trainings in hostage negotiations, SWAT, and dive training. Our dispatchers had a variety of training in the month. Officer Carrico trains 3 to 4 times a month with his dog. That's in addition to some of the things that he might do while he's on patrol. And then, as Mr. Anderson knows, a lot of us, and Mr. Jarecki knows, a lot of us attended the Open Meetings Act overview put on by Mr. Assorti and Mr. Friel.
Yeah, I noticed Detective Vasquez went to drone training.
Yes.
I forgot what our plan was for drones.
You forgot what, Mr. Anderson?
What's our plan with drones?
The drone we use for scene overviews, and we use for evidence collection, any type of Homeland Security details that we have. With the police department, with the applications that we use the drone for, it goes out of a hobby category and it goes into a government category. And so our drone operator is required to have a licensure and to go through certain types of programs and classes for safety, interacting with live aircraft that are flying around, especially since we have an airport, active airport. That individual has to be conscious of the FAA rules that apply to aircraft, and then it has applications to drone use. So we also do operate within the area of the Detroit Metropolitan Airport runway. You know, it's essentially just the aircraft actually operate on a roadmap, if you will, over the air, and they follow certain locations that they fly over. So we are in one of the landing zones, you know, that during certain wind conditions with Metro Airport that we could interfere with commercial aircraft. So there's a lot of liability, and there's a lot of legal ease that we need to be conscious of in order to operate our drones.
How many officers are trained on drones?
Right now, Detective Vasquez has went through the specific training. Detective Darznik is, let's just say, a novice and learning it. And then our actual ACO actually obtained a drone as a donation, and we're going to work on getting her trained, and she's going to use that applications for wildlife, for purposes associated with the ACO's activities.
Cool. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Sergeant Carmack, are you online? I'll let you give your briefing for the reserves if you would.
Hey,
Yes.
Brent, just before we go there,
Sure.
I got it. While we're on training and everybody's thinking about training right now.
Yes, sir.
So from, the technology that we use and we depend on, we at the police station, day to day, how many people do we have trained to kind of fix stuff when it breaks? Because it always breaks. Do we rely on one person, or we got 2 people? Or I thought we had 1, but then again, I thought we had 2 because we hired recently folks with that expertise. Where are we at right now on that?
Well, help me out, Mr. Jerk, on fixing what exactly are we?
Computers, IT related technology that we use day to day.
Okay, if we're referencing the computers, Detective Vasquez is our key guy for operations within that. He is complemented by our clerk, records clerk, Michelle Roerig. She's very well versed in a lot of the media aspects that we have, which go to car vehicle camera systems, our phone systems, operating that whole system of electronics. And then Susan Dalpia, she is seeking, has come out in a few of the other commission meetings. She has is looking for a computer forensics degree. So right now we have 3 individuals that are trained in some of our electronics media devices.
Okay, we're comfortable with that. We feel that's good.
It's a start, but we're going to complement that as we go. So no, I don't want to say that I'm comfortable with it. I mean,
I mean, that's a pretty good number basically for, 25 people, but it just depends on the birth of their, whatever they can handle. I mean, it's,
Sure.
if they're all specialized and 80% of the stuff that breaks is nobody can handle it but one person, then that's not a good thing, right?
I totally agree. And that's why I say I'm not really comfortable at this point, that we do need to enhance that and make it a little bit more broader. You are absolutely correct.
Okay, good.
Sergeant Carmack, I'll leave it up to you.
The reserve program came back to the service in February. All the reserves and the cadets are back in. We resumed training last month. We went over traffic stops and officer safety. The men and women of the reserve and cadet program have been off for a while because of COVID, so we had to kind of bring them back in. For the month of February, they did 23 hours total service. They volunteered for 23 hours of service, the reserves and cadets. We didn't have any details or events for the month. That's about it for the reserve program.
The next thing I'd like to...
Just on the reserves real fast, are we at a full staff right now, or do we have vacancies?
We have 2 vacancies, and I've been working with the administration about trying to get a program together where we can recruit from the island to get some people to apply. If anybody wants to apply and they're watching this, we have applications in the dispatch, and we're currently looking to have 2 more people come on board, 2 more individuals.
Sergeant Carmack is getting ready to make a video, from my understanding, in concert with some of his staff as a production video of trying to get somebody to volunteer for the reserve. So I'm looking forward to seeing that cinematography of his capabilities.
Academy Award movie.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
The next thing is ACO Cordis, if you're available. So I'll just do the introductions. Julie put together a PowerPoint presentation that I wanted the board or the commission to see. What we're running into is issues with, Julie does her job very well and ends up getting an intake of animals, but then they are adopted out very rapidly. So it gives the impression that the shelter is not a needed asset. So I wanted her to go over with a PowerPoint to just kind of give the commission an overview of exactly what has transpired. And we actually went back 5 years to try and give you an analysis of activity. So Julie, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm working a little out of my element here, so I'm trying to share a screen. And give me just one moment. Here we go.
You got it.
Okay, cool. That's a first for me, so sorry for the little delay. Title, Grosse Animal Shelter Expenses and Income Analysis, but I also wanted to include shelter operations. With the pandemic, we haven't been open to the public. I would love to invite the commission to come on a tour at some point when you all feel comfortable, or on a one-on-one basis, whatever you like, just to see the building. But this is a little bit of operations. Some of the financials, some of the numbers you'll see, I got straight from Ann Darzniak. And this just tells the shelter where the shelter is located. We've had the operation since 1996. The building is in great shape. A lot of our projects come from donated labor, materials, volunteer support. These graphs that I'm sharing, I have paper copies, and I'm sorry you don't have them in your packet. I don't think you do anyway, because the side-by-side of them is really depictive, but they follow a similar pattern. So what we're looking at as far as expenses is supplies, medical fees, vet fees, dog food, cat food, everything that encompasses the operations, the running of the business, as it were. The income is donations, fundraisers, our COVID cash, I like to call it, the pop bottles and cans, which I'm still astounded by the numbers of that. And then I just recently learned, going through the financials for Ann, that the dog park application fees come into there. And it's not a huge amount, but I think we had over 100 members last year, and it's $10 for residents and $20 for non-residents. So that's just another item of note. And these are numbers, just shelter alone, intake alone. There's a lot of ways to break this down, but this is incoming animals, and these are both done by fiscal year. So in 13, you can see there was 91 cats came in, 78 dogs. So some of those dogs probably were returned to owner. The majority of them were adoptions. The decline into 2017, in 2017, the 501c3 was backing out, and we were moving in a little different direction. We don't need to go into detail there, but things sort of came to a halt as we identified how we wanted to go forward. In 2018, there was a shelter manager in there, and I wasn't in there at all. And again, I don't know the exact dates. We're talking about a fiscal year picture here, but you can see how it came up and down. And then in 2019, I took over completely in managing of the shelter. And, you know, I'm cautious of following protocols and taking surrenders from residents, which is one of our protocols. There are some circumstances where we make an exception to that. It's very rare. 2020, we started leveling off, and we're still in 2020, we're working with a bridge closure and a pandemic. So it's interesting to see how these numbers go. And then 21 is incomplete, of course. So I would. Yep.
Julius, yeah, sorry, this is Eric. Sorry to stop you. What's the source of most of these animals, right? Are these strays? Are these people that, you know, dropped off the dogs or cats unwanted on the island, or where are they coming from?
If I was going to estimate a pie of that, I would say probably 70 to 75% are owner surrenders. And sometimes an owner surrender occurs because maybe the owner passed away and a family member then surrenders the animal. And there's a host of reasons why surrenders occur. But then part of that is strays. And then there's always an unknown. I'm not sure I'm getting the truth from everybody all the time. And if they say they found it on the north end in the woods by a dumpster, and I can't disprove that, I'm not going to try terribly hard, to interrogate anybody about something like that. We take them. When somebody owner surrenders, unless they have extenuating circumstances and are having financial hardships, they're required to have that animal healthy. We prefer spay neutered and current on vaccinations. And I try to have a conversation to make sure that that's being done. I don't pressure them, because if I don't want to discourage them from then surrendering the animal, it's a bit of a fine line. But a lot of times people will donate more than our surrender fee, which is paltry, and give it not only have the animal current on vaccinations, spay, neuter, et cetera, but they'll add an additional donation in there for the animal's care. So that works out really well. And we like to keep it cooperative, especially for our residents. But sometimes it's a non-resident we're working with from a deceased resident, or, there's all these different combinations. Did that answer your question, Mr. Ranka?
It did. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So let me move on to the next slide. I'm big on social media use. It's an excellent platform to get the message out, whatever the message might be. It's also it gives me reach when I have adoptions to make. And then for fundraising, I remember a time a couple of years ago, we had a washing machine breakdown, and I wasn't even really thinking about it. I just put a post on the shelter Facebook page and said, hey, if anybody has an old washing machine sitting in their garage. And I think about $3,000 came in, and we were able to get a real nice commercial machine from a couple of large donors. So social media continues to be a great avenue for me to communicate to and fro. These are just a couple of samples of some of our social media posts. And it's interesting on Facebook to see some of their statistics. But if you look at the one on the far right, was a residence dog surrendered due to a death. This is a beautiful animal. I mean, it's Lassie, right? So 84,065 people reached in that post. Reach and actual clicks are two different things, but you can see how that would be exponential with the amount of shares. Gunner, the one in the middle there, he was adopted. They were all adopted, but that had 2.4 thousand views. So if we're putting some messages in there, they're getting across. And then we have a captive audience that's interested in what we're doing. It's fun. It's usually happy endings, and everybody likes that. This is just a little bit more examples of post engagements and stuff. And that's current from February, March recent. So for a very light month, we still have very active engagement. The far left slide, we received recognition for a group called No Kill Advocacy Center. They're on Facebook. They pulled that number from the Michigan Department of Agriculture. I had no contact with them whatsoever. And it's depicting a very low euthanasia rate. We're one of the first no-kill shelters in Michigan, and we're very proud of that. And we try to preserve life when possible. The only time we would euthanize is if we had a very sick animal that couldn't be helped or that was suffering, waiting for help, or obviously a dangerous animal or an aggressive animal. These are a couple of recent posts. And again, the social media back and forth contact, when I find a stray animal, I'm sometimes still in my truck headed to the shelter, posting about it and making a connection to an owner, because somebody on Grosse now tagged somebody and said, hey, is this your dog? And, all of a sudden we're all connected and getting that dog back to its owner. And I do have a conversation about how to keep the dog in the yard. Is the dog licensed? And it's usually a friendly exchange. They're pretty happy that their dog was kept safe and returned with some education. So you might recognize some of the people in these adoption photos. That's Kim O'Farrell, adopted a kitten last year, and Margie, and a couple of our residents. And non-residents, of course, adopt also. Our adoption fee is low at $25. I bet we're probably the lowest in the state. So I think we could look at raising that. I wouldn't want to go too high because it helps keep our shelter empty. We get enough donations from fundraising and whatnot to maintain them. But it adds value to the animal.
How many volunteers do you have coming in to help you?
Next slide. Mr. Anderson, there's currently 16 cat room volunteers.
Oh, right there. 6 volunteers on the kennel.
It's almost like I prompted you. Thank you.
How about that?
Yeah.
I knew that was coming up.
Yep. There's 6 volunteers in the kennel crew. I just picked up 2 new volunteers. And they go through an orientation. It takes about an hour to walk them through and give them the tour. And we talk about safety is number one. Animals are unpredictable. And everybody signs a waiver of liability. And like at the bottom says, health and safety first priorities. We have also an enrichment team. I don't think I included that, but I just noticed one of the girls in the slide is she comes in and just pets the cats and holds them and plays with them with toys, and that's called enrichment. And it keeps a cat that has low stress is less likely to have immune system problems. High stress, then we start to see a sick cat room. So it's important to give them joy and interaction and social time. And I've shared this picture before, but it's just astounding. That pile is gone. We're not using the hangar one anymore. We're staying on top of it with our volunteers. Jane Fajal is like practically doing it by herself. I try to keep up with her, but the bottle returns continue. Not quite as strong as early pandemic, but close, real close. So we like that work. And then again, I just wanted to bring up the dog park. I never really talk about it, but when I realized some of that income is coming from the dog park, I wanted you to see where we're at today, what 2020 held for us. We had 110 members with 135 dogs visiting the park. We have recently replaced that fencing around the whole park, and that's in great shape. We don't need to do anything out there. We cooperate with rec, and DPS helps out if we have any issues with like our water source at the park. And again, I started a Facebook page this year just to cultivate new members and give us a platform for information sharing and picture sharing. I mean, everybody enjoys going to the dog park. And that is all.
On the dog park, how do you control access, or is it just the honor system?
It's a 4-digit combination lock. And
okay.
I just recently changed it, and I sent out, I have a database of all our members, and I have a volunteer that maintains the database for me. And I sent out notice that we were changing it because non-members were getting in, and that happens every couple of years. We'll see that we've got a problem with that. And it's not that we're trying to be exclusive about it. It's that everybody who joins the park has to show proof of vaccinations. We get them onto the database. So if there is a scuffle between dogs or something, and we need to find a dog owner because of whatever, I mean, we have that accountability. So it's a member-only park, but only to try and keep it a little more safe and healthy and enjoyable for those members. And it's so cheap. I mean, at $10 for residents, $20 for non-residents annually, it's well worth it. And it's a nice space to let the dogs run freely, but in a safe, contained area.
Yeah, my granddaughter keeps wanting to climb the fence and play in there. Yeah.
Julie, with the park, what % would be non-resident? Do you know?
Ooh, good question. I'll find out. I'm going to make a note of it.
Thanks.
Good question. Anything else? Anybody?
Julie, this is Mike Dracky. Quick question for you. So if we go back to the first part of your presentation, by the way, I think it's a great presentation, very informative. So thank you for doing it. But the question that I have is, I noticed it seems like your income is, relative to expenses, and relative to actual animals being sheltered there is going up. So are you saving any money? I mean, what do you have a bank account, and you guys healthy? And do you have any major projects that you're planning? You mentioned the fence.
Thank you for asking. I do have a wish list that I shared with the chief, and it hasn't changed very much over the years. We have done a couple projects, and for instance, we did an outdoor kennel extension for the dog kennel run. Gary Pachota donated the cement supplies. Campo Brothers donated the labor. All we had to pay for was Veterans Fence came in and did dividers and fencing for outdoor dog kennels. So while we have some projects coming up that might be costly, I'm really good at working with the contractors to get some cooperation and maybe a break from them, but also fundraising. And I'd love to show you these graphs in person, because there's some backstories to some of them as to why expenses might be high in one year. And one of them is that Veterans Fence. It was like $5,000.
No, I mean, just big picture. It seems like, the turnover or the amount of animals that we're getting is kind of been trending down, maybe trending up a little bit recently, but I can't remember from getting your presentation. But it seems like your cash is definitely going up.
Yeah.
And your revenues and expenses, are pretty much on a relative basis looking like they're pretty much staying the same. So that means you have greater free cash flow, right?
Yes, sir.
And so I'm just thinking you should be in a pretty good position. Do you have a cash balance that?
I think it's about 69,000.
Last week, I didn't even pay attention to that part of it anyways.
I didn't mention it. I think we're at about 69,000 on the balance.
Okay.
And
how's that compared to last year, roughly?
$30,000 more.
Yeah, it's almost doubled.
That's worth talking about.
Yeah, I agree.
Presentation, make sure you put that in it, okay?
How can I help the township? We do have some projects. I think we wanted to make sure that the income was going to keep coming and just be safe and not blow it all on some big project and then go, we don't have enough money to pay for the medical bills or whatever. Our medical bills stay pretty much the same. And again, the animal number is hardly changing. And I'll get copies of these graphs for you guys to look at. And then I'd be happy to answer any questions because I do have some general ledger numbers where I can dial in why was this year so big on expenses and low on income or what have you. But I'm pretty big on doing fundraisers. I actually, if I can have your ear for one more moment, I have a young man who is an Eagle Scout. I usually work with an Eagle Scout project a year. And in fact, they built the signboard at the dog park last year, a different group. But this young man, his name's Briggs Damon, and he is also in the National Honor Society. And he approached me and said he wanted to do something for the shelter. And he's got a really cool idea on tap. I don't want to tip the hand of his announcement, but he's going to be doing a fundraiser for the shelter. And then I have two lined up that I'm in early discussions about. And, I hope to be able to announce those real soon. But with the cans and bottles and with the pandemic ongoing, we have to get a little creative and not do these, banquet hall in-person type fundraisers. And we're adjusting to it.
Mr. Anderson, if I can jump in there in support of Julie. We have a couple of capital outlay items that are high expense. One is a roof. The roof is going to need to be replaced on the animal shelter. We're looking at that as about $18,000 to $20,000 expenditure. So with the new board, we were looking for the focus of whether the board wants to continue to operate the shelter. Our annual budgeted cost is between $9,000 and $10,000 for the animal shelter, and everything else is proceeds that Julie has acquired through her donations. So, that building, I believe it probably has either 2 or 3 roofs on it right now. Plus it overextends into an apartment, which, we can't just roof part of the building and not the whole building. So there's a lot of nuances to keeping that shelter, the maintenance and such. So before we invested a large amount of money, we just wanted to make sure that it's a viable option to keep the shelter going. And that's why I wanted Julie to give this presentation so that the board has all the information that they need to know that what's going on. And then, like I said, if you reach out to Julie specifically, she has some backstory on some of the history on this, which would give you a little bit more insight on why the numbers are as they are in the presentation. So
you're involved in this, Mike Jarecki, as far as the issues with the board and the budget?
I heard of no such recent issues, but it's budget time, so I'm sure they go to Brent before they go to me.
Yeah, there've been some rumblings, and just kind of be sure to reinforce or remind them that
No, I think
ultimately that building belongs to the township.
The financials are important, and I like the way they're trending.
Oh no, those are.
And so that can make all the difference in the world, because if it's a cost to the township, a significant cost, then it's it's an uphill battle pushing a rock, but if you got good participation from the community, good turnover on animals, providing great service is part of what makes Grosse great. So I thought that was really positive, and at some point in time, if it comes to be a major issue, I think maybe we should have Julie do a presentation to the board.
Oh, I think that
I sat through a lot of boring presentations, but I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, I think that was the reason Brent had this presentation.
Yeah, so
prepared.
I don't know if it's now or next month or 6 months from now, but I'll definitely keep my ear to the ground. So,
And
if
Brent,
you feel
I apologize for jumping all over your items. So
Yeah.
carry on with whatever you were trying to say before I rudely interrupted you.
No, I just wanted you to know that I'm supporting Julie, and she had a good outlook. She has a good focus on where the shelter can go, and I think it's worth looking at. And I just wanted the ground level started so that we can pursue this. The last thing is Sergeant Carmack was on, and then we lost him. He's back on, and he wanted to finish up with a couple of items. So, Doug, if you're still on, can you address the commission, please?
I had nothing more to add.
Brent, that was me.
Oh,
Make something up.
I got text messages from coming through here. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. So there was a couple of points I wanted to bring to the commission's attention. First is we currently have 6 sex offenders that reside in our township, and we're responsible for monitoring their activities and so forth. I had another officer visit each one of their homes to verify that they still reside there. That's an extra step in the process that we've taken the last couple of years, just to make sure that they're in compliance. That's in addition to their biannual or annual reporting that they have to do in our department. We do home visits. I just want to make sure that the commission was aware that during the month of February, we visited all 6 of our residents that are on the list.
Do we have any concern that there's any recidivism there?
No, none at all. No, all of our individuals seem to be in compliance. They check in when they're supposed to, and this is just an added step to make sure that you guys are. We did start the DARE program on March 1st. There are 7 classes in the 5th grade that are getting the program. 6 of those classes are in person, and 1 of them is done virtually. So there's going to be a total of approximately 140 students that receive that particular program again this year. We hope to be finished with it by the middle of May. That's the ultimate goal. Going to have to try to rush through it a little bit. And I just wanted to bring to the attention of the commission that we did have 2 activations with our SWAT and hostage negotiation team. One was the execution of a search warrant, and the other one was a barricaded gunman in the city of Taylor. So we did have personnel respond to 2 mutual aid call-outs during the month of February. And that's
As far as DARE, I think the kids are going back to 100%
Monday.
in-person school on Monday.
That's correct. Yep.
So that'll help somewhat as far as coordination for communication.
Yeah, so it's going to create some traffic congestion for us, specifically near the middle school.
Yeah, I know. Nobody uses the bloody buses, aren't they?
Well, we don't have buses right now, so.
As you say, it'd be great if we had buses right now.
It'd be phenomenal. But, we were giving special attention to Park Lane School. We have the traffic going very well there. But come Monday, when you have, in addition to all the middle school students, you have the entire 5th grade returning. It's going to be messy. It's going to be messy. So we're going to step up our presence, at least to start the back of the return.
Lieutenant, has there been any discussions for a traffic plan with the middle school? I've been there enough. It's a nightmare already as it is, especially on the north parking lot. The south parking lot, not so bad, but mainly the north. You've got a lot of crisscross going back to the 5th grade building and around the loop to the side by the gym.
Yeah, I did talk with the principal at the beginning of the school year about the traffic flow. And one of my requests was staggering the start times. And they did that to a certain degree. And that helps the delay between the 5th grade and the remainder of the middle school students. That has helped a little bit, but you have such a small area for people to go around the back of the middle school.
Right.
There's nowhere to put them. And with no turn lane on East River Road in either direction, there's a backup on East River Road. So it's very difficult. Busing would definitely improve our situation.
Okay. If I can just give a recommendation, the only thing I was thinking is maybe some direction on that north parking lot where If they're going to the middle school, they need to be on the left side of that north parking lot to do the loop around. And if they're going to the back building, they need to be on the right side of that parking lot going to the back building. Because I've watched the crisscrossing and I've been stuck in it myself of trying to crisscross and figure out, which traffic's going where.
Yeah, we've even had an issue with parents that want to turn around and face northbound along the west side of the building. And I've gone there specifically at the end of the day and spoke with some parents that I had photographs of what they were doing and who they were. So I was able to stop and identify a couple people and hopefully correct that behavior. We haven't gotten any more complaints about it, but now we're going to be talking about sheer volume. The volume is just going to be horrendous.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so those were the 3 points I wanted to add about the sex offenders, DARE starting, and then our SWAT team activations.
Do we know on the sex offenders real quick, do we make sure that they're up to date with the offender tracking that's searchable online for the public?
Yes.
Okay.
When an offender comes in to register, whether it's annually or biannually, we enter that data before they leave our police department. And when we do a home visit, when I've gone to a home to verify that they're still there, I go into my CGen, our platform, and update that. So what I'm considering doing, I mean, we haven't had an issue with like a general change in their appearance, but we have the ability to update photographs and other things too through that specific Michigan State Police platform we use.
Okay.
Lieutenant, I know you're up to speed on the background on this. I can take her if you want to, the juvenile report.
That's fine. So our officers responded to a medical emergency. It was unknown what happened with this particular minor. They got there, they found out that he was under the influence of something. They weren't sure if it was something that came from a vape pen, but ultimately, after reaching back out to the parents, they found out that the kid was just intoxicated, and he was passed out at the bottom of the stairs. So he had stumbled, injured himself, and when the parents returned home, they found him semi-conscious at the foot of the stairs. So it turned out that he was suffering from alcohol poisoning or just alcohol consumption.
What was the age range?
15, I believe, was his age. He's a high school student.
Gotcha.
Chairman Anderson, that's going to complete the monthly report. I do have the last closing comment that would be on the LOMA circle whenever you're ready for that.
Just because we cover a lot in most of the report, but I'm not going to ask for a deer collects update. I imagine you're putting together like a final report.
There is a final report being generated. I've reached out to the biologist, Zach Cooley, with the Michigan DNR. I'm waiting to get feedback from him on our activity that's been done. And with that information, I'm seeking further remedy to be able to address the problem that we have.
Okay. Well, you can tell us when you got it.
Thank you.
Also, this license plate reader, how often do we have to circle back on that, or is it going to be a while?
In reference to the poll and the...
Yeah, the things we were talking about the last meeting or two.
Yeah, I've been reaching out to Derek Thiel with DPS. He's been working with the contractor that is online and being remedied as we speak.
All right. So we will put it on the agenda. You just tell us if there's anything that's going to keep it from happening.
Understood.
I mean, you got a little time, I imagine, before it needs to be proven.
Yes, sir.
So I think that's all I had. Anyone else have any questions for
quick
the
question.
deputy chief or?
I do real quick. Deputy Chief, how hard would it be to get a annual average for the officers regarding the self-initiated activity? Would that be something we could easily put together to do an annual average compared to their each month?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
So would you want to do that once a year, just keep a running average month to month? When would you like that report?
Get a running average, if we can get one for current and then to continue it thereafter.
So a rolling average after that.
Yeah, it would be pretty simple if that's something that can easily put together.
Yes, Mr. Longton, we can do that. Just as a point of reference, we are doing, our policy dictates a personnel review that's supposed to happen in January. We've been relaxed on that activity. So I've tasked Sergeant Carmack to review that process, and he's implementing a program. I'm very happy that he's putting a lot of effort into that. So with that personnel review that will, which were mandated by policy and procedure, we can incorporate the annual average that you're talking about to give a totality of what's going on. So
nice.
I appreciate that input, and I appreciate Sergeant Carmack for stepping up to the plate and taking on that task to make sure we're compliant with our own rules and regulations.
Very good. Thank you.
So, Brent, just to educate me, what is a personnel review? What is that?
Just doing an annual review of personnel and then getting feedback from them, and then them getting feedback from us of what our expectations and how their performance was during the given 12-month period.
Okay. All right.
It's something that's really not been implemented for years, and it was reviewed under the policy recently, and so we're going to make sure we're coming into compliance.
Good. Ready.
Before we leave that, I see Greg's on. Greg Parmesan.
Hey, Paul, you going to let me do my liaison report? Or are you just going to skip over me tonight?
Well, we're skipping you right now because I just wanted to, we just said something about deer call. I wanted to know if Greg had anything specifically, because we forgot to put public comment on the agenda.
Oh, this is Greg. I can wait till the end for public comment when you normally have done it.
Yeah, but I don't have it on there, so it can be wherever.
Oh, well, I defer to Mike. I mean, I think he probably has something more important to say than me, but I did have a comment. I wanted to make it when appropriate.
I really don't. I totally defer to the chairman here. So however.
Oh, and I'm sorry, you got me in a Jimmy Crack Corn mood, so I don't care. So go right ahead, Mike.
All right. So we received approval to create the eligibility list for the replacement of Clerk Dispatcher Bennett. Earlier, I think on March 10th, we had a budget review for the entire township. It's normally about an hour process, and based upon my participation in the past, that was totally inadequate to go through the entire township and have any reasonable opinion as to where we're at and how we're doing and where we're going. So this time around, and give credit to Jim Budney for setting this up, we had about 3.5 hours dedicated to it. And all the departments presented their budgets. Brent presented the police budget. He did a really good job, answered a lot of tough questions, most of them from me. Just kidding. But he did do a good job. And, it was a pretty thorough overview. And I'm pretty confident that come Monday, our budget will be approved. Let's see here. In terms of the continued delay on hiring a permanent chief, the budget is the big thing that the board has held up as a reason why approval of the budget. I didn't see anything in the budget. It actually went up year over year, I guess 1.5%. And I didn't see any elimination of headcount or anything that would change the way the department is run. So whatever that's worth. And that is pretty much it. All righty.
Anyone have any questions for Mike?
No questions for me.
Very good.
probably just good to point out then. So the reason for going out for the dispatch is due to retirement.
Yeah, yeah. When is it, Brent? Or
June
whatever?
1st. June 1st.
So yeah, so we can go out and start looking now.
Okay.
So hopefully anybody watching can pass that word along that we'll need to hire somebody.
We haven't put the applications out yet, right?
There's a solicitation that, what was the date, Ruth, that they went out?
It is out, and I believe they're due back by April 6th. We have 2 so far.
Okay. All right. So we've done the monthly report, the liaison report, the reserve report we covered. Or no? Thought we rolled it in. The budget update we covered twice. Mike's update on the upcoming and Deputy Chief's discussion in his report. We are now to Loma Circle.
Just a brief overview. So a couple of residents have been concerned about the intersection at Loma and West River. They consider the intersection to be dangerous because the roadway is about 8 to 10 feet away from the fog line of the road. So the DPS and the police department are taking this very seriously. I wanted to express that there are some extenuating circumstances that doesn't allow us to mitigate this problem immediately. Wayne County Engineering is reviewing the issue. They're reviewing to see if this was investigated before and if it was approved or not. They need to do a layout for the guardrail. They also need to send out a field crew to design the installation. There's a lot of other factors that are involved that come into place of electrical wiring, underground wiring, a lot of infrastructure that needs to be looked upon to see if it's a safety factor for the installation crew to put in these guardrails. So, and then there is a specific engineering design for that. So understanding all of the nuances, it isn't something that can be just put up immediately. There's a whole procedure with Wayne County. So DPS Director Derek Thiel is on top of this. He is coordinating with the Wayne County Public Works. So I just wanted to give an update on that we are cooperatively working on this and addressing this issue, but it is going to take some time to remedy this situation.
Okay, and in the interim, we're doing what?
In the interim, we did put up some what would I call them? Emergency barriers that would just denote that there's a hazard at that location. And that was recommended by Mr. Anderson. So I greatly appreciate that idea. So we're doing what we can as a police department, but once again, this would be Wayne County's.
No, I totally understand it's Wayne County, but anyway, are the residents placated?
Well, they did go to Facebook and social media and
I saw that
petition. So I would say no. So we're not responding fast enough, but all the things behind the scenes are in place and taking place. So I can assure you of that.
Good. That's the important thing.
And that's all I have to address that topic.
Okay. Let's take care of public comment. Mr. Carmson. I assume you had something to say. If you don't, that's fine.
Yes, Greg Carmson. Just wanted to again thank the commission and the department professional personnel for the job they did on the deer call. I think it's been well received in the community. I did post an article about it on social media that I think got a lot of positive feedback overall. And there's certainly some people in the community that would prefer non-lethal means to controlling the deer population. But as we all know, it's not even legal currently under Michigan law. And it's certainly not economically feasible either. But the feedback that I've gotten, it's been overwhelmingly positive about the results of the deer call. And certainly I'm encouraged to hear that there's additional thought going into working with DNR and possibly biologists to look at the impact in the ecosystem. And
Well, you
and
realize we do have access to the DNR biologist.
Yeah,
It's not like we're out there, aimlessly picking our own path.
sure. And I think this is a great opportunity to dig into it maybe a little deeper than has been done in the past, to look at, what number is ultimately sustainable, because it sounds like even though with the 200 deer cull this time, you're still going to be back up around 500 after the birthing season. So that still seems to be at least 4 times larger than what the DNR sustainable level for Grosse seal is calculated to be. So I just look forward to more information on that and more planning on that taking place. The other comment that I wanted to make is I did a little more research on this issue of the toll bridge and its operations during rush hour this summer. And it's my understanding that the Coast Guard has not approved the request that the bridge company made to be able to keep the bridge shut during morning and afternoon rush hour. So given that, I would
Hadn't they approved that in the past?
my understanding is they did approve that last year, and
Right.
they approved it for the 8 o'clock, or essentially the 8:30 to 9:30 time slot, and in the afternoon from, I think it was 4:30 to 4:30, or 5 to 6, and in the morning maybe 8 to 9, I think is what it effectively was. So this year, given the Coast Guard did not approve the bridge company's request, I would encourage the township to look into that, talk to the Coast Guard, see if something can be done, why they didn't approve the same restriction that they approved last year. Frankly, from my personal perspective is I don't think any marine traffic should go through the toll bridge in the morning from 6:30 to 9:30, and in the afternoon from 4:30 to 7:30. That would be ideal, but if you can get it even from 5 to 7 or 4:30 to 7 or 6:30 in the afternoon, and in the morning from 6:30 to 9. I think you'd get the bulk of the rush hour traffic. Certainly anytime you have to open that bridge during rush hour, it creates delays on both sides. And, so I just wanted to bring it to your attention. That's what I've heard
or Greg, I mean, I usually can count on you to have covered all your bases. Who have you talked to up at the other end of Meridian?
I haven't talked to anybody up there. I wanted to talk to you guys first because I just found this out, frankly, the other day. And
from our side, Mike,
I think it's a traffic flow issue to some extent, emergency management. But I thought it's probably something that's best addressed by
it's a good point. But I know Mike's been working with a couple other guys on the board to keep track of the bridge issue.
Okay.
Has anything been discussed along those lines?
I haven't had that conversation with Mike or anyone else on the board, so I was going to bring it up first with you, your commission. I just learned about this recently, so I wanted to bring it up with you guys first.
So, Mike, what are your thoughts?
Well, did Wayne? So just again. Concisely, Greg, last year they approved restrictions, you said?
Yes, the Coast Guard approved a restriction on opening the bridge between essentially the 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock time slot, which I think effectively means there wasn't an opening between 7:30 and 9:30. But That was in the morning, and then in the afternoon it was between 5 and 6, and I think
You're
that's
not-
yeah.
You're not
cool.
really sure, and then you think 5 and 6. So Wayne County, what, and to the best of your knowledge, Wayne County has asked them to do it this year?
No, it's not Wayne County. The bridge company itself makes the request. But it's my understanding that request was rejected by the Coast Guard.
So to me, it would seem that here at the commission, you know, maybe the police would have more juice than anybody calling up, picking up the phone and talking to the Coast Guard and saying, hey, guys, this could be, you know, hazardous. You know, there's a lot of traffic during those periods of time. And at least ask them, have we done that? I know we have relationships with other federal government agencies, you know, related to, you know, the Army and everything else, and, you know, various agencies that you work with. Do you have a relationship with the Coast Guard at all? You have a Brent or Ken type question. I mean, you guys ever communicate?
We've dealt with the Coast Guard just on a congenial conversation. We don't have any relationships with them.
Whatsoever, huh?
And the only reason I threw it at you, Mike, is because, you know, we don't want to go pounding on the Coast Guard's door if there's already someone within the township or affiliated with Wayne County going the same way.
Well, that's a good point. And
So,
tomorrow there's a bridge meeting with Wayne County, and but what we know for sure was between 8 and 9 and 5 and 6.
That's our memory.
Could have bled over before.
Yeah, Mike, I can send you the, I actually have a copy of the Coast Guard's restriction. I can email it to you.
Okay, why don't you do that? Because the meeting's at 10 tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll do that tonight.
And I'll ask the question because, you know, that could be, you know, it's always problematic, right? And if they're not, they did it last year, why not this year?
Well, that's a good question to ask. I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, we're under the same situation. So, okay. Yeah, send it to me and I'll pop the question tomorrow.
Okay.
And it was a good question, Greg, because, you know, my assumption was whoever was handling it before would handle it this time, and the Coast Guard would agree, and we'd be on our merry way. But it's obvious that this could have slipped through the cracks.
Well, it was the bridge company. It's my understanding the bridge company has made the request in the past, and they've been able to get the approval without the township.
But I'm sure we always had a police recommendation that Paul Smoke could rely on.
Right.
From a traffic perspective. And I don't know, Brent, if you could look through the files and see if there were any letters we wrote last year to support closing it, or, you know, not, you know, keeping it closed during rush hour.
Yeah.
We may have some paper trail where we've helped them, or we've tried to, or we've worked on this in the past.
Yeah, I'll check into that, but to my knowledge, that has not, we don't have that documentation.
Well, question, Greg. What is their policy right now? Don't they just open it on the hour?
They open it on the hour and half hour. So it's 3 minutes before, 3 minutes after. That's for pleasure craft. Now, commercial marine vessels, they open on demand. Yeah, and I don't think there was a restriction on commercial vessels last year. This was only on pleasure craft. I'm not entirely sure.
Commercials were always scheduled, so they knew.
Yeah, they can come up at any, if it's a marine commercial, can also be a barge. It can be, you know,
documented vessel.
Yeah.
Yeah, documented vessel.
Right.
All right. Sounds like we have an issue.
Because I don't have a heck of a lot of time to prepare myself for this.
Well, just
you're saying right now. Let me finish. So
Pardon?
what you're saying is every half hour they open it, right? So they.
Well, the way I think that the free bridge, I think, was every hour on the half hour. And
They're on the,
toll
they're on
bridge
the,
was every 15 and 45.
it's,
But it changes, so
the toll bridge is on the hour and half hour. The county bridge is on the quarter hour and
Yeah,
quarter
there
two.
you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's 3 minutes. 3 minute, a pleasure craft can come up and request an opening 3 minutes before or 3 minutes after the hour or half hour.
Okay.
But a typical swing for a pleasure craft is 7 to 10 minutes total from start to finish. But a commercial vessel can be, if it's a lake freighter, it's about 25 minutes.
Well,
And
the
a
rule
barge-
is they got to open so many when he's so far away, whether it's a half
Yeah,
mile, a mile.
yeah, exactly. So that's why, if you're talking about a commercial vessel, even something that's like a barge, I mean, that could still take 15 minutes to go through. And during rush hour, that's a big, big delay.
But really what we're saying is, it's like potentially, let me see, it'd be four times a day that they would be receptive to opening. We're asking them not to. Right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you think of the 24 hours in the day, I mean, you would really be asking them to restrict for 2 hours in the morning rush hour and 2 hours in the afternoon rush hour. That would be, it would be more ideal if it was 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon.
I could ask for the world, Greg. I just want to know what they did last year was 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour.
Correct. Last year was 1. They technically it's 1 hour. The height of rush hour between 8 and 9 is what they did last year, and 4 to I think it was 5 to 6. 5 to 6. Yeah.
All right. So if we can get that, that's something better than we have. I mean, I know.
Right. That would be the absolute height of the rush hour, 5 to 6 and 8 to 9.
Okay. All right.
That's all.
Good stuff. Thanks.
Okay, but one thing back to the deer calling. I'm not sure it was your post or not, Greg, but it was a typical post of so and so and so and so's happened. What do you think? And I took it when I read the one on the deer call, it was like someone was soliciting opposition to us killing Bambi. Was that your post?
No, I mean, in the on Grosse Ile civic issues, we always close the posts by asking people what they think.
Well, no, this was a specific, what do you think about killing Bambi?
Okay, I don't know what you're referring to. No, we didn't.
All right, just wanted to be sure.
I mean, in the past, when we did a straight poll on what the community's feeling was about the deer call, and it was overwhelmingly positive. It was in favor, and all I've seen is overall is positive feedback in terms of where the community is on doing a deer call. I mean, there's certainly some people that are in favor of non-lethal means, but of course there is a state law that prohibits that at the moment.
Right.
But I don't think anybody has said Grosse Ile has, doesn't have enough deer or the level of deer on the island.
I'll go back in and find it, and I'll email it to you if I thought it was you.
Okay, sure.
So, all right, so we're in public comment. I know AJ's on. You have any comments? Julie, you have any more you want to say?
No, sir. Thanks very much.
Again, thank you for an excellent job on the presentation and the data. Okay. No more public comment. I would like a motion to go into closed session.
Sorry, I forgot my mic was not on.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to go into closed session so we can discuss the ongoing personnel issues. I don't have a case number to reference, but it's specifically regarding our officer who's still off duty right now.
So do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. So, is Ruth still on?
Yes, I am.
You know, I think we're going to have to hold another training session just to get ourselves aligned again, because there's been a lot of drama and tempest in a teacup this week. And yeah,
I agree. I've talked with Brian about that.
and but we can talk about that at our next training session. But I don't know who has control of shutting down. I think.
Yeah, right now I'm trying to get people. Just give me one moment.
No.
I think, is everybody good who's in there?
I think we are, yeah.
I'm just double checking the list, Brian. Yeah, we're good.
Okay,